Walk with me through the cellar door.
A storm is coming, Francis.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Welcome back to another episode of Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you so much for tuning in again on this wonderful, wonderful holiday weekend. We decided to release the episode a little bit early because this is a special episode, and with the holiday coming, we were hoping you to find time to listen to us as you travel back from all those wonderful vacations that you all come home from. And tonight we're going to have a special conversation. It's going to be a little bit shorter. Normally we do an hour and a half to 2 hours. Tonight we're going to have a little bit shorter conversation because we only have one guest. We had one goal this week, to have a conversation with the lead singer of the Order of Elijah, Shannon. And what happened was I reached out to him on Facebook after I saw him at Meta post an article that talked about him being in a metalcore band, which is one of my favorite genres, ironically enough, and him coming out from Christianity as an atheist and how they basically publicized it. And then with doing a little bit of research, I found out that a lot of them were a little bit more hardcore Christian, or at least that's how they appeared to be, to me. And so I thought this would be a great conversation. And I don't like when we do just one type of a topic, but when I talked with this individual, him and I got along very, very well, and it seemed he was very eager to join us tonight. And I think this is an important story. And it's not just because it's Memorial Day weekend, and it's not just because there's a lot of other issues going on within the atheist movement, but it's because, to me, one of the biggest things that we can do is create content and help those that are coming out of religion. And to me, his story is very, very pointed. It feels very familiar. It makes me feel comfortable with being able to share his story and for others to listen to. And you got to look at it, and I have respect for him, as you'll hear in just a few minutes. But I respect the fact that instead of him sticking to his Christian beliefs, instead of him sticking in the band saying, you know what, we're going to just pretend we're Christian for the money, for the gigs, that we're going to come out as atheists. And the best part is nobody deconverts on one topic or one issue. It's a progress, and that's what I like about his story. Is it feels to me so human, so real. It makes me want to reach out and give him a hug and say thank you so much for being able to stand up and help others out. And he just explains it as, hey, it's nothing. It's just I want it to be true to myself, and that's just kind of how I see it. And I see it as the same thing, but I also see his deconversion experience through his latest album. And so Hannah and I talked about this, and we said, hey, we'd love for you to come on the show, Shannon. We'd love to have a conversation with you, talk to you a little bit about what you used to believe, what you do believe, and how your life's going to go forward from here. We wanted to talk also quite a bit about the band because I did enjoy the music. So if you like these type of conversations, before we get into the interview, please run over to iTunes, give us a rating, throw us a rating up on iTunes. If you can sponsor us on Patreon. If you can't, hey, it's not a big deal. Just share our content. We do all of this because our goal is to get information out to the community, and we just want to add another voice to the voiceless. So thank you so much for joining us at Cellar Door Skeptics, and here is the interview with Shannon of the Order of Elijah. Hey, Shannon, how are you doing tonight? Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us. I know you got a tour coming up, so we're hoping that those of you, the listeners that listen to this, will be able to see you on your upcoming tour. So if we could begin with kind of a little bit of your history, I think that's, for me, that's always the big question, right? So for me, and I know you don't know me very well, Shannon, but for me, I grew up Christian, so I grew up in the Christian music scene. I was in a ska band, ironically enough, that went nowhere. We recorded at a local college. If you saw our album, you would just laugh. We were horrible. We were horrible. But I grew up in a very conservative household that I had to listen to only Christian music growing up. I was not allowed to listen to secular music. Like, my first secular album was, I think, 14, and I had Stabbing Westward. And my mom found it, tore it apart. My second album...
Stabbing Westward.
There you go, yeah, the original. So that was when Darkest Days came out, too, so... And then I had a Rob Zombie I had a White Zombie, technically, his last album before he went solo. And my mom found that, and then I was like, oh, now we got to go see the pastor. You know, I can't believe you listened to this garbage. But before you started the band, were you always a Christian, or were you secular? What's your background for everybody that's listening?
I became a Christian at whenever I was 20. So I think it was about maybe 4 or 5 years before the band started, but I wasn't really heavy into it. And it was whenever there was a church I got into, and whenever I got into them, I kind of got like really passionate about it. And I think that it just kind of grew from there. Whenever I started the Order of Elijah, I was a Christian, and it was my chance to be able to, because I quit a band because I was a Christian. I left that band thinking I was doing bad things in that band, and I started this band to do godly things, I guess.
There's always different spectrums of Christianity. You know, there's the fundamentalist side where people are very fundamental, right? You know, like some people are so fundamental, you know, they don't drink, they don't smoke, they don't swear, they don't get tattoos. You know, obviously, you know, I mean, the audience can't see your tattoos, but you have tattoos. So you couldn't have been that fundamental of a Christian, but, you know, kind of give everybody a spectrum of your Christianity. You know, were you a creationist? Were you an evolutionist? Did you subscribe to hell? That kind of regiment there.
You know, it was all in steps. I began more of like a conservative type person. That's what I was kind of born into the culture that way. I kind of slowly became what I would consider like a liberal Christian, because I remember that I as a Christian, I still supported gay marriage and a lot of things that's shunned down by the conservative side of Christianity. But you know, a lot of the music before this was against like a lot of corruption of the churches too. So, and that's one thing I told one person, they're like, well, what are you gonna be about? I was like, oh, well, same thing. I was like, we were against organized religion back then, and we were Christians now. I'm against organized religion, and I'm an atheist. So, but I think that it had to do with the church I was going to. The church I was going to really pounded in this, like, you know, new age type Christianity that seems to be just sweeping the market with like the non-denominational type groups, which is actually more of a branch off of a Pentecost. I think most of them kind of remind me of like a less charismatic type Assembly of God or something. But that was really pushing me against like because he would talk shit on a lot of other churches sometimes, to just put it lightly, and you know, I think that kind of took root in the beginning, but
yeah, and
I don't think I was too much of a conservative.
No, well, if you voted for or approved of same-sex marriage, then you definitely were not on the conservative side of the spectrum there. And you know, which is interesting, though, because, well, you're from Missouri, and I can't imagine in Missouri, and I guess I don't know, you know, I can't pronounce the name of your city, but I'm horrible with names, just so you know. But, you know, Joplin?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how conservative.
You may remember us from a very huge tornado.
Yes, and I do remember that. And it's funny because, you know, when it came up, I was like, man, I've heard of that before. My wife was sitting over there. She's like, oh, that's where they had a tornado go through a while ago, and it made the news. Don't you remember that? And I was like, oh, yeah, I do. But until then, you know, I guess there's enough God calamity in the world that you don't remember all of it.
The only tornado story I remember is when they drove that Dodge Ram in that movie up and all the Pepsi cans flew up in the air or whatever. That's about as much tornado memory as I got.
So in your town, is where you live, is it more liberal there, or is it more of a conservative town? Even as a Christian band, did you guys stand out different than a lot of other, let's just say, churches?
I think Missouri, out of all of the dirty South states, if we're considered one of those, is probably the most progressive. There's a little bit of a mixture of both, but I would say it's primarily conservatives around. We're kind of a smaller, big town, and where we came from, we were, I think, like my hometown here. There's 265 churches in our town. And
holy shit!
It's like I think like it rations out to like a church every mile or something. There'll be clusters of them in certain places, of course, but yeah, there's a lot of different churches around here. So I don't know, like the Christian community. I tell you what, they were picking us apart from the beginning. I never was a good Christian. They never really accepted. They're constantly criticizing their own people so much that it's hard to please them. You know what I mean? Like I always felt like I was walking on eggshells and stuff like that, especially whenever getting around Christian. But I mean, I've had I've met some really nice people and stuff. That's not to. I always say there's a big fine line in between criticizing someone's ideas and someone as a person.
And I would agree with you, and that's part of what our show is. I mean, even if you had been a Christian and we had invited you on, we would have had a pleasant conversation. I mean, our goal isn't to tear people down and go after them in that aspect. It's to tear the religion down to the point where people can see some of the flaws, and then they can make their own judgments if this is what they want or this is not what they want. And what drew me to your story, though, is because of my background. I'm big into music. I really like metal. Your last album, actually sounded extremely well written and very well produced. And so when I heard it, I was like, holy shit! Like, this is something I would actually listen to. Now I got to go read the damn lyrics, because if he's telling me I got to go accept Christ, I just can't listen to this. It's like brainwashing to me. And I'll be honest, I have a little bit of tendency to stay away from Christian bands personally. But there's a band called The Chariot, and I'm big into grindcore as well. And they're technically Christians in a band, but none of their album is preachy. They do have some messages you can definitely tell are influenced by their beliefs. But they don't go out to say you must be saved, you must not be saved, stuff like that. And so, was your old albums kind of like that? And maybe an example would be if you remember POD, when they first came out, they had a song about kicking Satan in the ass with a steel-toed boot, and then when they became mainstream, they kind of went away from that. But was your original music aggressively pro-Christian?
Yeah, before the last album, yeah, it was pro-Christian, and I did a lot of talking about standing up for what you believed in, because I always felt like a lot of Christians don't do that and properly. I've really kind of experienced that recently too, but I think that I do think we were before. I mean, yeah, not every song was driven straight for that, but the way that I read the lyrics was usually often against things in the church and stuff, and because I got pissed off at churches, I don't know how many times, and then I would take that to my lyrics, and I would say that we tried to be the bad boys of Christianity, if that makes any sense. And because we never really we wouldn't, not perfect people. You'd catch us drinking at shows and stuff like that, and we would get people calling us out. So we never really tried to hide behind some facade of what we being something we weren't. But I think I see what you're saying. I can see how it's related. Like you're talking about the Chariot. I tried not to make it real Christian-y. I tried not to write like that POD style. kicking Satan with a steel-toed boot, whatever.
Well, there's this punk band called JC, or they had a song called JCHC. It's Officer Negative, and so I don't know if you guys ever played at Cornerstone, because I'm 33 and I haven't been involved in Christian music scene at all in over 10 years now. But there was a local thing in Indiana or Illinois where they had like this huge Christian music festival. It's like Woodstock. And they had this band there called Officer Negative, and they were literally like punks, like punks. And they had the song called Jesus Christ Hardcore. But every one of their songs was just so in your face. So if you didn't believe any of that, it was a complete turnoff, honestly. And whereas bands like Project 86 or Blindside and stuff like that, they were a little bit more relatable to me as I was leaving the faith, because I started to leave the faith when I was 18, 19 years old. And then I kind of floated back, and then I came out as an atheist, about 4 years ago. And nowadays, it's very hard for me to go back and listen to some of those songs. I love the music, but it's just those lyrics are just kind of a turnoff.
Hello, I'm Miss B. Haven.
I'm Demanda Wright.
And we're
Promoting secular feminism. And you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Hi, my name's Callie.
And I'm Ari.
If you're like most of us, you're very concerned about the gay agenda's plans for world domination.
Are you tired of seeing glitter all over every damn thing?
Do you hate rainbows as much as any other red-blooded American?
Then we have the answer for all your baseless fears and unjustified paranoia.
Presented exclusively on Secular Media Network, the Gaytheist Manifesto is your source for news, commentary, discussion, and debate at the intersection of the atheist movement and the LGBT rights movement.
You can find us on Spreaker, iTunes, and at gaytheistmanifesto.secularmediagroup.com.
If you're not ready to get in line for your mandatory gay marriage and you're terrified of short-haired women in pantsuits, come have a listen and get up to date on their plans. You'll be glad you did.
Hey, this is Keith.
And this is Jen, and we're from Not Another Atheist Podcast.
You're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Join the revolution.
Now, back to the show.
And so in your life and the band's life, were you the only one that came out as an atheist, or is the other band members kind of floating along in the same path? Or I guess tell us a little bit about how this is affecting the band currently.
The band a few of the members were already agnostic. That's the best way to describe it, and I don't want to speak for any of them. I know one of them, he would definitely not claim atheistic or agnostic, and another one kind of has joined me in the kind of following me in the decline. The other ones, I'll just be honest, most of them just don't give a shit. Yeah, they really just don't. I was one that was always like wanted us to be Christian. I was the one that always kind of wanted to do that. These guys just want to play music mainly, and whenever I came to them and told them I wanted to, make the title of the band draw away from this whole Christian culture, and they were totally down. They're like, "Oh, good, finally, Shannon." And so, and then of course, I was talking to Brian, our guitarist, who, he had some faith, but he really didn't. He wasn't religious or anything. And of course, as I went through my journey, I would sit down with him every week or so and just sit there and spill all this stuff out to him that I'd been learning. And he was just sitting over there earlier, just discussing about how it's crazy how both of us have kind of made this transition together. But only one of us, I would say, would even probably still have any type of faith or anything. And I'm not out to try to change him, but he's not like religious Christian or is it anything like that. Like,
so he's not going to make you guys all go back to church then?
No, he don't go to church and stuff like that. I would call him a universalist, is what I would kind of think. Like
a deist.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be a good one.
I used to say apatheist when I was younger because I knew I didn't believe, but I didn't like atheism. It wasn't anything. I never really believed. I grew up in a pluralistic household with Judaism and Christianity kind of mixing together. As ridiculous as the two stories were to me, they were just stories. And so like I never really had any one thing. So it's the apatheist. It's like the I don't give a shit that you just talked about would probably be a good way to describe them. But I had a question about the difference between you guys. You basically said that you guys were a bunch of the guys in the band were there to play music. You know, you took an interesting turn with some of the stuff that you had said in some of the interviews that I was reading, that basically instead of preaching for the Jesus concept, you were more like, let's kick Satan's ass, or be against Satan, or, you know, that kind of thing. Like against the bad stuff, against the negative stuff. So, I mean, I thought that was pretty cool. It's an interesting way to take on it because it's still a Christianic ideal, but it's kind of like saying we don't like all the bad stuff, which it obviously would be a good thing. But my question is, the other metal bands that are considered Christian bands, are they like? Because I'm not familiar with the field at all. So to a complete layperson, are in their lyrics and stuff, is it like Christ the Savior is born, or is it, you know, like do they keep the ideas of like the darker tones and, you know, the typical things we talk about in metal, like fighting and stuff like that, but like with the pro Christianity thing, or is it more like what you guys were doing with kind of like we don't like the bad stuff and here's our metal music about it?
Yeah, there's many different shades to the color. You will find some people that I've met metal bands that are the most brutal band with the lowest, deepest vocals that it's just constant chaos. And if you like look at their lyrics, it's talking about Jesus is the Lamb of God and you know, stuff like that. And there's other ones, more of the ones that seem to catch traction and do better in the scene. They do have they try to balance their ability to make biblical references and scriptural references, along with keep it like a brutal undertone, maybe like an aggressive type of lyrical structure, stuff like that, to kind of keep that metal thing going. But every one of them has their different methods. I've met some people that do you read the lyrics, you wouldn't even know it was Christian, and whenever you find out it's Christian, you might even still be like, I don't see that. And perhaps some of our music might be that way, but I know that with most of the ones that are popular that get attention, it could pass off either way, definitely.
Yeah, after reading through some of your lyrics, I'm hearing impaired. I'm about 85-90% deaf. So I learned to speak when I was younger. I can speak pretty good, but my hearing has gotten worse as I've gotten older. And it's about 90%-ish now. So I can't really understand, even in songs that I've listened to a bunch of times, I still have a very hard time. So immediately I found out that, you know, Christian has now come out as an atheist. So I went to and I the video and loaded up the lyrics page so I could go through it. And I would agree, your music doesn't come over as like the shovel to the face Christianity that I like to call it, when it's just like there's no question that this is preaching with music in the background. You guys, even with some of your more religious stuff, it doesn't come off too hard. So I could listen to it. If I didn't know it was Christian, it would be a stretch for me to catch on and really see that. And I don't know if Tanner feels the same way or not.
Yeah, I mean,
now our new album, on the other hand, it takes a big turn.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I haven't heard the older music. Some of it's I don't want to call it, PTSD, but I do have a harder time with religious music, and I do have a harder time with hymns and stuff like that, just because I did have a very it wasn't a traumatic upbringing, but there was a lot of indoctrination. And, if anybody listening goes back and listens to old shows, Hannah and I do a segment called Christopher, stupid shit Christopher used to believe, or crazy shit Chris used to believe. And you should hear some of the shit I used to believe. I mean, we were taught that man had one less rib than a woman.
We did a segment on that. I mean, and I'm dead serious. I used to believe that. I used to believe that the flood was real.
And I used to believe, I really used to believe that the reason the flood happened, there was a scientific reason, that there was a canopy of water that rained down, and that's how it flooded the earth. So I stay away some of it from some of that really religious type stuff. But your newer album, you couldn't tell there was a big Christian overtone. I mean, I would have claimed the album to be deist at best, honestly. I mean, and that would be granting it. You didn't come out and say, hey, you should be a Christian, or hey, this is because of my Christian faith. I mean, you talked more about humanist values than anything else, honestly.
That's an interesting thing. Half that album is literally written in the transition process, is what I'd say. You might, like, it's almost confusing because there's songs on there where I was writing where I was still holding on to the religion, and then there's songs where I've completely let go of it. And I have another song on there about my daughter, you know, so it's kind of a mixture of a bunch of different things. But I was going over the lyrics myself not too long ago, and I was seeing just the massive diversity that I had amongst the meanings that I had going into the song. The song that we're about to release is called War at Heart, and we'll have a lyric video for that, and that was written after I had let go of religion. Like, it's weird because, and now I feel like I've learned so much more since then, because this was written, you know, like it released in January, so I probably whenever it released, I'd probably only had about 3-4 months after I'd shed religion and given it up and stuff. I was neck deep in a bunch of Sam Harris books. I got all into that.
That's what I was going to ask. Is like, did you do the typical the four horsemen of the atheism? Go through Hitchens, Harris, Dawkins, Dennett, and did basically the crash course and learning about a lot of the different beliefs?
Yes, it is. I did read Dennett's book too, Breaking the Spell.
Good.
And, it was really interesting. He's just a complete philosopher.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's actually what I like about Dennett the most, to be honest with you. I'll be honest, I'm very partial to Christopher Hitchens, you know, personally. And I'm not a big Dawkins fan, honestly, at all. I did not care for some of his writing. I do like The God Delusion. I do think it's a little overrated. But Christopher Hitchens' voice, I can hear his voice.
And I have seen a lot of debates, so that's probably part of the reason.
No, you can hear his voice when you read it.
I do. You can, and you think that, like, it's in your head, and you just can't get it out of your damn head. You're like, you know.
I really like watching Christopher Hitchens. I haven't read his books.
The best thing you can ever do is find the audiobook of God Is Not Great.
Yeah.
That Hitchens actually dictated. So, like, I have a copy of Hitchens reading his book to me. So it's like whenever I want to hear or, you know, go through it or whatever, you could throw that in there, and it's just kind of like hanging out with the Hitch, man. It's awesome.
Nice.
So if we could go, well, let's back up just a little bit. You know, so in your transition and through your album writing and stuff like that, is that where you started to kind of deconstruct your faith, I guess I would call it, and move closer towards, you know, a more of a secular viewpoint, more of an atheistic viewpoint, and kind of what led up to that, you know, because I'll be honest, and we could talk about this in a few minutes, there was a Christian Today post that came out that basically said you gave up your religion incorrectly, and if you would talk to the right people. Now, inside of the atheist circle, we hear that, and you know, I'm 4 years out. I hear that argument every week, just so you know, like, it is nothing new to hear that argument. And as you're writing that music, what was kind of the thought process? Because there was a Christian Today post that came out that basically said, hey, you came out for the wrong reasons. You know, if you talked to the right Christian, you still would be, you know, a Christian today. So kind of walk us through that progress.
Yeah, I seen that post, and for one, they didn't get my story right at all. They credited my entire deconversion to Richard Dawkins, and you know, the process is kind of, it's not all at once. And that's what I've kind of told a lot of people. A lot of people ask you, and they expect like that there's just one thing. They're like, what was it? What was the one thing that changed? And it's like, I think it's an accumulative process. You know, stuff stacks up, and you can get one bad story, or you can get one contradiction, or you can get one flaw in science, and you'll be like, well, God's pretty crazy, you know, maybe he just like broke the rules that time. And then, but whenever so much stuff starts packing up, eventually, you know, you just, yeah, I don't know. That's what I tell a lot of people is, you know, it isn't just one thing. And the people discrediting me in that post, in a big way, and this is kind of crazy, in a big way, I got upset that they were discrediting the church I came from more than me. They're like, oh yeah, they had shitty doctrination. Yeah, if they wouldn't have talked to, if you wouldn't have had somebody else to tell it to him. I'm like, oh no, it's all the same all the way across. And they were a decent church. In fact, they're a lot cooler than many churches that I know as far as, you know, the bullshit that people do. And that kind of, I don't know. I don't really have any. That wasn't the only apologetics I heard. I was swamped with apologetics. Whenever I have any question at all, I usually try to look up stuff for myself. And then whenever I was a Christian, I would go see what other Christians had to say. The problem is to me, so much of it is subjective. It's pretty much all subjective. And each one of them goes about, you know, especially the leaders, they put it out in this objective way. And, you know, each pastor has their objective stance of why the Bears killed the kids because they called that dude baller, or any story you want to bring up, you know, and they're always different. They're always different. It's opinions on how to justify this stuff. And I mean, I think quite frankly, a lot of them just don't want to go to hell. You know, nobody wants to go to hell. If you've been programmed your entire life just in your head to just, you're going to hell if you don't believe this one thing, then, you know, you'll make up any reason you can to justify what's in that book to prevent yourself from going to hell.
I went to your YouTube page just to see, like, because YouTube's the first place to go when people get pissed. It's like to see what's going on, and I just read some of the comments and everything. There are so many no true Scotsman fallacies happening down there. He was never a real Christian. He pretended to be a Christian to get a record deal. I saw that a bunch of times, and they're like, people have said that being in a Christian band is like career suicide because you can never get rid of that, and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's an interesting flip on the other direction. It's like they're smearing you because you weren't true Christian, and then there's other people that are saying that you pretended to be a Christian for the notoriety. Beautiful.
Yeah, there's everyone has their own reason over there. That I opened up the comment section on one Christian post and just glanced at some of the stuff they were saying, and it's so inaccurate. I mean, it's so inaccurate, the stuff they say, and a lot of them say if you ever truly felt the presence of God, then you wouldn't be. And I'm like, well, how shitty of God to fucking fake it? You know, it's like, if he would have showed me, then maybe I would have. You know, I guess so.
Well, you know,
I've come to reconciliation of all of my spiritual experiences and all that on my own. So, you know, they can discredit me all they want. I mean, I know I was. I've been truthful this whole time.
This is Ishmael Brown, the HNIC from the Angry Black Rant podcast, and you're listening to the Cellar Door Skeptics.
Hey everybody, this is X.
I'm Kyle.
And I'm Felicia. We're the Utah Outcasts.
3 out, unashamed, and active atheists living in Utah.
And we are personally inviting you to let us love your ears each and every week.
As we take the news, current events, and pop culture and give it a little twist.
A love twist with consent.
And we'll be joined each week by a special guest to tell us what makes them an outcast like us.
Come find us.
The Utah Outcasts.
On podhell.com, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play,
Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
And on utahoutcast.com.
We finally bought that domain off the kids handing out mixtapes in the mall.
Come be an outcast with us.
Take care of yourselves out there.
Bonne nuit.
And you're welcome.
This is Trav Mamone, host of the By Any Means podcast, and you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics. Prepare for the revolution. We have cookies.
Now, back to the show.
Well, and I think that's actually really important. You know, I mean, you talk about your deconversion experience, you know, a little bit earlier, right? And you talk about how half the album, your album is your deconversion experience, I guess, if you want to call it that, to a point. You know, you could see the progression in there. And the one nice thing is you come out to everybody. So you switch labels. And whether you did that consciously or subconsciously, while you switched, you know, you moved into the secular realm. Then you've also gone and now you've come out and just basically said, hey, I'm an atheist or I'm agnostic and I don't believe in God anymore, and sucks to be you if you don't like it, you know? And I'll be honest, to me that's ballsy. That I gain respect for somebody that can admit, you know, at least what they are. And in the atheist community, a lot of us will say, you know, good for you because you're helping to project a voice for those that have to remain voiceless. And it's nice to see somebody be authentic versus turning around and saying, "Well, you could have stayed in the Christian realm for the money." You know, I mean, I don't know how much money you made Christian versus secular, but you know, there is some very popular Christian bands that make a lot of money, but yet you chose to be true to your beliefs, and you would think Christians would embrace that at least. They should at least embrace that part of it. That for fuck's sake, you literally went and said, "Look at me, I don't believe the same as you anymore. I don't care if you do, but I'm not going to lie to you." And you would think they could respect that, for fuck's sake, at least.
Some of them did, but I could probably count on one hand how many I've heard of that had really legit, just chill responses. Now, how many have done the other, I couldn't even count, but apostasy is just really looked down upon. And as I've told some, I'm just like, hey, you know, I know you're pissed, but at least we're not over in Afghanistan because you would legally be able to murder me. So
that's true.
Luckily, born into Christianity instead of Islam.
Yeah, and that's good though. You know, I mean, you're right. We are not in a society that can legally murder us, for fuck's sake. So there are people out there, and I guess that's not really a laughing matter, honestly. But you know, there are people out there that are being put to death by the day for their, you know, standing up for their non-belief. And you know, that's part of the reason we speak out a little bit. You know, I mean, we're not some super popular people, right? You know, Chris Hanna and I do this because we like to. And, you know, we like to talk to interesting people and have those conversations. But we're hoping that our message will reach somebody to say, hey, the more people that stand up, the more people that speak out, the more people that say, hey, hold on a second. It's okay to be secular. We're not going to judge you for your Christian beliefs. Just don't shove them down our fucking throat anymore. Stop regulating them in our system. We're hoping that we can infect other countries. If I'm an anti-war guy, like hardcore anti-war guy, and if they're going to go to war and bomb other countries, then at least bomb them and say, hey, you're no longer going to have a religion, for fuck's sake. I mean, if they're going to try and ruin an economy, they might as well take that part out of it too. But yet they're not doing that. It's just this, you know, this construct that they want to remain superior, I think. So.
No, he's basically just we totally, you know, give you props for just coming out and speaking your own mind and just getting into the honesty of the entire situation. It's awesome to see that you felt comfortable enough at this point in your life that you were able to do that. I guess, what's the family reaction like? Is the family pretty devout, or is it kind of in between? Have you at least been able to stay amicable to your loved ones and everybody, or has it been pretty difficult? Because that's one of the things, like, people who never believed, I usually don't have this type of big problem, but people who were really into it and their families really into it, like, there can be a lot of problems when you finally announce and tell everyone how you feel.
Two parts to that. For one, you are right on the fact that whenever, and I can say this from just my recent experience, whenever someone does decide to stand up and say it, it just seems so impossible at first. I remember whenever I thought, I was like, this is something I'm never going to be able to tell anyone. You know, that's just what I thought. And whenever I did, I had so many people come to me telling me like, yeah, the same thing, but I could never tell my family. I could never, let people know. I would lose my job. I would get kicked out of my home. I would lose my wife. I would, my parents would disown me. And so that makes me wonder. I know that what was it in from 2005 to now, I think 2015, back then it was like 97% of Americans claimed that they were evangelical Christians, and now it's dropped down to, I think, like 75, and there's like a 25% nuns. So, this is my hopeful thinking. If there 25% of us are none, there's got to be at least another 15% or more that are there, and they're not coming out because of the fear of everything I just said, losing your job, losing your family, losing your home. I spoke to my mother about this before I told everyone, and I also spoke to my dad. Both my parents they're really cool. My mom, she was, I think her first words was like, "Shannon, you can't tell anyone this. They might think you're an atheist." And I was like, "Oh, Mom, and I love her to death. She just doesn't understand, that there's even a culture here." And I haven't spoke to some of my other members of my family that are more religious, but I presume that they're just going to be cool. I don't suspect anyone trying to, reconvert me at a family gathering or anything. If they did, I'm sure I'll be fine.
Well, that's good. Yeah, well, I still have bits and pieces here and there. I've got some pretty religious family. My grandfather came to my shop the other day with a T-shirt that said "Atheism is just temporary." So I challenged him to a debate. So, well, I mean, sometimes your families, the really religious ones, can be fun. There can be good conversation, and I'm glad that you have a positive reaction. Chris has had some pretty tough stuff with some of his family members. He's also been able to be with, be fine with some of the other family members and stuff. So it's nice you can hear good, you can hear bad, but I always say this, is that anybody who listens to this is interested in your story, whatever, make sure you're 100% good to go when we make that decision. Don't rush it. It's got to be the right time, and don't take any chances. Don't damage or ruin your life unless you absolutely have to get out of that situation, safety reasons or whatever. But you need to make sure that you've got a place to go, a way to, take care of yourself before that you don't just throw something like this out there in some families. We hear about in Iowa and places like that where we have really high suicide rates from kids getting kicked out of families and they're homeless. There's some dangerous things that can happen there. So I once again, everyone come out at your own pace.
Right. I have some friends that they became atheists whenever they still lived with their parents, and maybe in later high school or whenever, right before they moved out. And then after they get into college and they get away and they find a little bit more of a chance to find out who they are, then they can go ahead and do this. And then, you don't have to come home to mom and dad. You just see them on Christmas and say, "Hey, let's not talk about this. Let's just have a good time." So, some people are in a rush. I've met some kids that are just, they want to just scream it from a mountaintop, and it's, like I said, you or kind of like you said, you just can't put your own self at risk in any situation. I mean, if there was Nazis everywhere and then I was a Jew, I wouldn't want to just go out and tell everyone I was a Jew.
Jeez. So do you feel on your side, because you took a little bit longer, coming out, it was more of a progress for you versus an instantaneous, decision. Do you feel that, you came out at the right time, I guess. You know, I mean, was it right for you? Was it right for the band? Was it something that you felt comfortable, or did you kind of get your hand forced a little bit?
I think it was the right time. I do feel like I maybe the term "my hand was forced" is a little, but yeah, somewhat. I felt like I was like getting into a corner with myself. I put myself there. You know, I would put up a meme on the page that would stand up for LGBT equality, and then next thing you know, it would just turn into an ugly war disaster fest of, you know, religious garble. And it kind of dawned on me. I was like, man, you know, there's still, you know, like, I don't know, perhaps that helped, you know, make me make the decision. But I feel like it was the right time. I think if I would have done it any earlier, I wouldn't have known what to say and stuff. You know, you don't always have the words at first. So, I mean, now I can firmly take my own stance, and I know where I'm coming from, you know, and I've spoke with my family, stuff like that.
Yeah. And I think that's important, you know. I mean, it's good that you're able to come out on your own, and you know, it's kind of funny because I was kind of the opposite when I had lost my job twice in 1 year, and for me that was just like I didn't know what else to do. I thought, for fuck's sake, obviously God was telling me something. There's no other explanation in my personal mind. I literally could not come up with a better explanation. And then I can look at my parents, and you know, whether they have my parents are doing very well. You know, my dad's held very steady jobs. My dad makes a decent amount of money and can provide a good living. I'm sitting here struggling, going, you know, it has to be that, right? That cognitive bias that comes in. And I went back to church, and then all of a sudden one day, you know, I went to church. I started thinking, hey, I should start doing this again. You know, this made me feel better. That community made me feel comfortable. And then all of a sudden my wife's like, here, you should listen to this podcast. And within a week I was like, yep, I'm an ace. Fuck this shit. There's no way in hell I could even believe this. Why would I want it? And in over 40 years I finally come to
what podcast was it?
The Thinking Atheist.
So Seth Andrews runs the Thinking Atheist, and he was my first introduction to atheism in retrospect. And I'll be honest, I've never met him in person, but I've interviewed him a couple times, and every time I meet him, I tell him, just so you know, you are responsible for my deconversion, motherfucker. Just so you understand that you are officially responsible for this shit.
But when I came out, I went like 100 miles an hour. It was all of a sudden like, bam, nope, you're wrong. Bam, nope, you're wrong. Bam, you're wrong. And I isolated a lot of people in my life, honestly, because of that. And now I look back and go, maybe I shouldn't have done that. You know, maybe I really shouldn't have done that. But then the fear took over that community. And so at first I was like super into the atheist community. I wanted to get sucked into it. You know, that's actually how I met my co-host, Chris Hanna, was reaching out to try and find activism stuff I could do. Because I've honestly been involved in LGBT activism, you know, for 10 years. Like when I left religion the first time and kind of went into a deistic state, that was the first thing because I grew up protesting abortion clinics, for fuck's sake. You know, I mean, I grew up witnessing and going on missions trips. So all I wanted to do was convert people and save people. And when I no longer wanted to save them for Christ, I wanted to save humanity. And so the LGBT community just kind of fit some of my friends' lifestyles, and then I just got sucked into that activism. So do you with your newfound, you know, disbelief, do you find that you'll focus your music or your life or your band on more humanistic aspects? Because if you still have that drive, you know, I mean, I can read some of your lyrics, they feel like you have that drive to help people. How does the band work going forward, and how you see that sounds stupid. How in the future are you going to be able to use that drive that you have to produce the same quality type content, just not for Christ anymore?
Well, I honestly think that I will probably keep writing along the same lines of what I've done. Like I feel like I got a lot of my poetic sense of lyricism through Jim Morrison. I freaked out on the Doors at an earlier time in my childhood. So I mean, that the sense of of that will still be there. I'll still try to be poetic, but I've had Christians like practically beg me to not write songs about why I don't believe. But yeah, of course I'm going to do that. Yeah, I'm going to, that's what I'm passionate about. That like it was a big transition. I mean, that's what some of the songs are on War at Heart. I don't know. It's going to be probably more. I was thinking about a song about climate change deniers and stuff like that, preserving stuff for the rest of our kids, which seems to be denying that as a major thing that goes on over there. Kind of like what you said, humanism. I think that'll probably be more along the lines of what my lyrics will go for. I still want to help people, and I still want to be able to do things, write things that people can relate to, and they can say, hey, you know what? I'm going through that too. And, struggles with faith seems to be something that a lot of people seem to go through. And, a lot of people are afraid to write about that stuff. And I've got an assortment of arsenals that whenever I go to write, like even on this last album, I even have, a song about my daughter and stuff, because she's kind of been with me through this whole deal. And I've been a single father for like 3 years now, and that's a major part of my life. So I wrote about it, and so I can't. I've had a lot of different things going through my head for stuff I want to write on the next album. The boys are eager right now to write. They've got a hair up their ass right now for writing. So every practice they're working on new songs, and I'm really excited about our new material that'll be coming out.
Hey guys, this is Wyatt Mathers from the Atheist Avengers podcast. You are listening to the Cellar Door Skeptics. Prepare for the revolution.
Hi, this is Dan, Brian, and Matt with the Godless Revolution podcast. We've had a lot of great guests on this show, such as Russell Glasser, Dan Arrow, Brian Fields, David Silverman, Doug Mesner, a.k.a. Lucian Greaves, and Joey Kirkman, whom we love a lot.
We've also had a lot of really cool local guests. And we're a podcast that likes to fight for the separation of church and state and against anti-skepticism of all kinds.
You should give us a listen, because if you don't, you're going to be really sad.
Make your ears happy. Listen to the Godless Revolution podcast.
This is Deborah McTaggart from Beyond the Trailer Park, and you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Now, back to the show.
Let's transition a little bit away from the atheism thing. I think if you have time to, we've spent, probably almost an hour having a conversation about your old band, deconversion, how you're going to go forward in the future. I actually have questions about your music. I'll be honest, as a fan, or a newfound fan of your music, I actually enjoyed listening to your last album. And so what that spurred me to do was go back and read some of your old lyrics. And one of the ones that stuck out to me was called A Ballad of Jimmy Baker. And I don't know why this stands out to me. I have absolutely no clue if this is a Christian song or not. You don't mention God or anything in the whole song. But for whatever reason, that song sticks out to me a lot. So for those listening who are going to hopefully go find some of your old music as well, can you tell us a little bit about that song? I just need to know what goes into that song and what was the thought process behind that one.
I'm sitting here going over the lyrics in my head. See, that song there really wasn't all about, it really wasn't a Christian-driven, I guess, or I guess that would be the way to put it. Jimmy Baker was a preacher from Branson, Missouri, and he's arguably one of the most corruptible pastors. He did time in prison for taking money from churches, and he made millions. I think he was a TV evangelist and stuff as well, and he got the song was kind of based around that, but it was the meaning of the song is about letting go of shit that kind of holds you back, So, I mean, it really didn't have a real religious meaning. It was kind of more of overcoming, things. Because and now that I'm sitting here trying to go over the lyrics in my head,
the name of
I have like what seems to be a murder scene at one point in time.
The name Jim and Tammy Baker is what my father has. Whenever he talks about the corrupt evangelical TV preachers, those are the two that when he was younger they make fun of. So this guy was a big deal for a while. I remember that. The wife, Tammy, she's like crazy makeup all over the place. She looks like something out of a like a crazy country bluegrass cover out. It's just nuts. It's just really, really wild looking.
But yeah, no. That basically the story is like, a ballad for him, like supporting him, or are we talking like slamming him down for being such a piece of garbage that?
Yeah. Yeah. It was pretty much. Shunning the title especially was shunning that whole edge of making money with Christianity thing. The song's lyrics are all over the place as far as meaning goes. Like it's an older song, and we're actually resurrecting that song at practice right now because we didn't play it for like a year. Because it was about half a year. When we started playing the new material, preparing for the album release, like we just stopped playing a lot of the old songs, and now we're about to go back out on tour, so we're trying to break out some of those older songs. And I remember I had forgot a portion of the lyrics on that, and it's so demanded by the fans. Fans at shows are always like, "Play that song." I'm like, I can't remember it. But we've been going over it in practice and stuff, so we're going to start breaking it back out on tour. But yeah, it definitely wasn't in support of Jimmy Baker.
That would be a little bit of a stretch. Your music, basically a couple of songs that I listened to.
I get a lot of influences, things that I recognize from my typical style of listening of metal is more like Fear Factory, some of the older Fear Factory stuff. Some of the newer stuff's good too, but like that's the kind of genre that I listen to. Chris likes a little bit harder, heavier, deeper grindcore stuff. But I hear a few different genres of metal in your voice. You get some Wayne static, higher pitches going. You get some good fast stuff, but there's also some rhythmic, almost not quite like new metal, but some quick, fast talk-paced lyrics and stuff. So I guess what are your influences? Where are you coming from? Like what built you up to make you the kind of singer that you are today?
I really like fast vocals, and I have a guilty pleasure for like rap and old school gangster rap and stuff like that. I can sit around and listen to Dr. Dre and Eazy-E. I really like Machine Gun Kelly and Yellow Wolf. Those guys are really fast. As far as like metal, I got a lot of influence from Chad from Mudvayne. I don't know if you've listened to much Mudvayne, but he would just rattle that stuff off really fast, and he was one of the first artists really breaking that out. Whitechapel has some really good fast stuff, but my influences are all over the place as well. Like I remember one time I was sitting there, I get on these kicks where I'll just get obsessed with it, like one artist or one show or something, and I did it with Elvis for a while. This sounds so ridiculous, but I was just soaked into Elvis for weeks, for months, and we were writing some of the songs, and I was sitting there trying to like use some of the articulation that I heard in Elvis songs in my screams.
Like old school Elvis?
It doesn't even make sense, but
old school Elvis, or are we talking like doo-wop? The Las Vegas, so like the doo-wop, like rockabilly kind of feel?
Yeah, I like old Elvis. Yeah, I like old Elvis, honestly. Like I there's some of the newer stuff I like, or not. It's not new by any means, but some of his latter material I can dig, but mainly the 50s and 60s stuff is what I always liked. Whatever he was doing, like the rockabilly type thing. I'm not big on rockabilly though, as odd as that is.
How about hellbilly? You like hellbilly? I'll take that
I'm
as a
not
no.
too familiar with it. No, my ex-wife is with a dude who's in they call themselves a psychobilly band. So I guess the genre billy has really kind of taken off.
It has. I'm not really fond of any versions of it personally, and I like grindcore, but I don't know. I'm not a big if it's got a twang to it, I kind of have a problem with it for the most part. The only exception I'll admit on the show, the only exception is the Counting Crows. So if the Counting Crows put it out, I listen to it. They could put out a country album and I'd listen to it. And there you go, folks. Everybody has heard me admit man. And I don't like country music at all. I hate country music. I don't know why either. And I had somebody, I don't know who the hell it was, but somebody messaged me and they were like, you really shouldn't hate country music. You should have an open mind. It's like, no, I don't have an open mind. No, you really need to have one. Do you understand? You're not being you're not being very skeptical. It's like, I don't like fucking country music. I don't know how to tell you this shit. I don't like country music.
My biggest problem with country music, it's not really like some of the guitar work's decent. It's impressive. It's like, wow, that would be really difficult. Some of the singing, the harmonics and the harmonies, and that'd be difficult too. But the thing that I don't like the most about country is a lot of them don't write their own music. That blew me away. That was like, what? How could you be in a band, be a singer, like a famous singer, and maybe write one song on each album? It's not your words. It's not you, your emotions, your stories. Like what? I just can't. I can't even understand it. And when I found that out, my wife loves country, and she was telling me this about the major country stars, and they don't write their own music. That was a death toll for me. There's no way in hell I can get into something if somebody's like, okay, well, here's all the songs you're gonna write, you're gonna sing this year. It's just like, I don't know, a pop band, like In Sync or something, but just with country music. It's just no way.
Yeah, it's kind of an older tradition. Ghostwriting used to be something done all the time. Ironically, we were talking about Elvis. He didn't write most all of his songs, but that was like in the 50s and 60s, and there's a transition in between now and then where artists began a cycle of earning respect through writing their own lyrics. Country seems to have not kept up with that evolution.
The singer-songwriter, Bob Dylan, the Working Class Heroes, like Indiana guy, the small town, John Cougar Mellencamp, and all those guys, like they the blue collar worker kind of stuff, like the popularity for writing their own music is pretty sweet. So I'm assuming, obviously, that you write all your own stuff. Do you do any music as well, or is it basically you do the vocals and that's about it?
I write all the stuff for this band lyrically. I've done some guest spots on a handful of other bands' albums and stuff, and I've written the stuff on that usually as well, but I've never written songs for like anyone else that they use the lyrics for.
Do you do any music, actual, like playing any instruments or any of that kind of arrangement, engineering, any of that?
I play an acoustic guitar and sing stupid songs sometimes on tour, but nothing that I've tried to take public.
That's just the background for the people hanging out on the bus at the end of the night. It's like, hey man, get your guitar out, sing that funny song.
Play Freebird.
Well, there's definitely a bit of that underground, the behind the scenes tour stuff I've always been interested in. Just like what it's really like to go on tour and stuff. I played sports, and so in college I had to do the tour, but it wasn't like an enjoyable thing to get around in the big tour bus. It's just a bus. We're on a coach bus. When you guys are out and traveling around or whatever, is it like what we all hear it is for like the small metal band? They're in a van with a small trailer, and it's just close quarters, smells terrible, and everybody is just dirty, and it's hardcore. I mean, is it really as bad as everybody says it is?
Yes. Yeah. No, we do have a van. We have a van. We pull a trailer. We'll usually stay in a hotel every other night, maybe every 2 or 3 nights. We'll have a handful of people that'll let us stay at their house and stuff, which is much more enjoyable. but you can never dodge having to sleep, in the parking lot of a truck or a truck stop, And whenever it's summer, if it's decent outside, I just bring a sleeping bag and I roll it down across the top of the van and pass out. I mean, you could get a hotel, but it's pointless because sometimes we have 8 to 10 hour drives in between shows, very next day. So to get a hotel would be a waste of money to crash out there for 5 hours and leave. We usually just toggle off driving, but
you can't waste $100.
It can get rough sometimes. We try to cut financial corners every chance we can.
Yeah. You don't want to. Yeah, it's a waste of $100. I actually one of my best friends. His name's Zombie Joe, and we've been to tons of metal conferences. Actually, that's the only genre of music he likes is death metal. But we do that. We used to do that. Now we don't do that as much now that I actually can. We don't have to do that now if I don't want to. But back in the day when we were poor, it was okay. So how much money do we have to spend on merch? All right, how much money do we have to spend on booze? Okay, how much booze can we drink and still legally drive home? All right, how long do we have to sleep in the car before we can legally drive home? And all those crazy things, because we used to have to figure that out. But he was like that. He would never spend money on a hotel. He just wouldn't do it ever. He was so anti-hotels that it wasn't even funny. Like, he just kind of go, dude, like, it's a 5-hour drive from Chicago back home. Do you really want to do this? Yeah. We're drunk. Let's just sleep in the parking lot, and then we'll get up in like 5 hours. We'll be okay. And we had some good experiences. I mean, we've seen some awesome bands, but yeah, there was a lot of times we probably shouldn't have slept in the car. But you just do what you got to do.
Did you and Zombie Joe cuddle like John Candy and Steve Martin in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles? That's one of my favorite road trip movies of all time.
No, I drove I had a manual car, so there was a stick between us, so no cuddling. Too small.
That works pretty good.
All right, so we don't want to take too much of Shannon's time up, but there's one thing I'd like to add. There's two things I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask you to plug where they can find you, but before we do that, you got to tell us a story, a crazy story from your touring experience that you've never told anyone else.
Craziest story from touring?
Yes. And you can abbreviate names so nobody has to be incriminated.
Okay. Honestly, most of my crazy stories from tour involve sex. But I mean, that's not like what we do all the time. But that's more like the crazy
you just made it sound like that.
Dude, you should have left it like that. That would have been like the best way. Be like, oh, yeah, it's just sex, man. That's the biggest, craziest thing.
I mean, we've had so many crazy moments. We've almost died, I don't know how many times, just from, we've had drivers that have fallen asleep and we've just went off the road, almost off a bridge one time. We've had, we try to be particular about our drivers now. We've gotten stuck in a handful of places. Like, we were down in Louisiana, we got stuck in this nasty ass red clay mud. It was just it was like quicksand. It just sunk the entire trailer into this mud. It was like midnight. And I don't know, there's a handful of things. We've had some of the most dullest nights in the world. And most of the time on tour is a lot of just passing time, because you'll hurry up and get to the show, and then you load in your gear, and then you got 4 hours until you play. So you're just kind of waiting around, and a lot of time in the van. But from time to time we have some crazy moments that we'll stumble across. But I would say most of the crazier times would include drinking, because the boys will get pretty hammered sometimes. But
I think that's
really
typical,
haven't been drinking, so
I think that's typical. I mean, crazy shit happens when you get drunk. I can attest to that more than once.
Man, we've had a couple of shows where we were drinking a little too much while we were recording, and the last segment it's just a mess. But
yeah, sometimes. Not this one though. Not this one. We were
pretty sober for this one. So
I had one question. One quick one is, you got any tattoos that are a little too religious that you might be cutting up and changing a little bit? Because that's a pretty, I mean, did you get any really religious tattoos or something that you got to think twice about?
Because I can't read some of the writing.
That is a great question. That's a great question. Actually, I'm chock fucking full of them. I've got Bible scripture here written in Greek.
Oh no!
I've got like Jesus back here. I've got like a sword, but then I I was like, what am I gonna do? You know, I remember the first day. I looked down. I was like, I remember the first day. I'd already shed religion for like 3 or 4 days, and I looked down and I was like, oh man, I forgot about this. And so instead of getting it removed, because somebody made a point, they were like, you know, that was a big part of your life, you know. And that's another big fuck you to you people that say that I was never a Christian anyway. Like, why would I get it tattooed all over me? But,
yeah.
I decided to just get one tattoo that would negate it, and I went and got this one here, which is like this atheist symbol that
That's awesome.
right next to the Jesus scriptures.
So
So there kind of makes a good story.
is the reason part of your tattoos in red is because that's Jesus' actual words?
Yeah, oh yeah. Where Jesus' words is the red part. You know, like the Bible.
Yeah, well, I agree. I grew up with that. That's how we
That's
knew what
actually
the
my
important
most
part was.
asked about tattoo still.
Yeah, because I don't think everybody, even in the Christian realm, knows that. I said I don't think everybody in the Christian realm knows that. I don't think everybody goes, oh yeah, the red's Jesus. But I grew up, you knew the red was Jesus. You knew when the important stuff was being talked about.
Yeah, there's been a definite segregation from the old traditional things. I don't even know many Christians that even use the king.
So, as we close, we don't want to take too much of your time up. We thank you very much for sticking around with us and having an amazing interview. And yeah, I said the word, Hannah. See, look, I got that out. I got amazing out. I got it out before you could shut me down. So, thank you, Shannon, so much for joining us tonight. We'll post all your links in the description, but really quick before we leave, tell everybody where the best place to get a hold of you is at.
Okay. I thought that's what it was. Facebook, it's facebook.com/The Order of Elijah. We're the only Order of Elijah, so if you Google us, I mean, you'll find all types of stuff. If you go look for us on YouTube, there's a handful of videos you can go through and check out. Our new album, which is the secular album, is available on iTunes and Amazon. Victory Records has a place in their distribution. You can go pick up some stuff. We also have a store in Beat. You can grab some stuff. So I always just tell people to Google it. You know, we're the only one out there. So it's a little bit easier to find than like a band name like Devastate or something. There's probably like 70 of those.
All right, so thank you so much, Shannon, for joining us tonight. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around and listening to another awesome episode of Cellar Door Skeptics. You can check all of the Order of Elijah's links out in our description. Make sure you go support their new album, support them on tour, and, you know, buy a t-shirt, buy an album, and, you know, make sure you send Shannon a little bit of love now that he has come out as an atheist. So thank you, Shannon, so much for joining us tonight. It was a pleasure. Your music is amazing, and the interview was very pleasurable. Thank you, everybody, so much for sticking around for Cellar Door Skeptics. We'll be back next week with more science education with HIV vaccines and hopefully a little bit about socialism. Good night, everyone.
Hey, this is Shannon Low from the Order of Elijah, and you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics. Yeah.
You've been listening to a presentation of Cellar Door Skeptics. Check us out on Spreaker, cellardoorskeptics.com.